Yeah, right. But
a certain amount of them.
have you changed?
No.
Or have you held on to the same principles and the world has moved?
You know, it's so funny. I keep saying that my liberal principles are now becoming a conservative position. And I think I've had a little bit of an evolution. I'm probably a little more small government than I used to be. But the basic liberal tenets that I've had are the exact same things that I had probably literally 20 years ago.
When you say liberal, do you mean classic liberal?
I mean classical liberal, not
Yeah.
progressive. And I
Yeah.
go out of my way every week to try to explain the difference of that.
Huge
And unfortunately, the word liberal has just been mangled to the point where people don't understand what that is anymore.
By the progressives for a reason.
Yeah.
To take the individual freedom chair away from the table. If you look at the early progressive movement with Wilson and, oh God, here I go.
Yeah, go. No,
with
this is
Wilson and Theodore Roosevelt, they both believed in the big state.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the person who says, no, I don't want state? Both parties said, no, it's state. It's either, and this is before these took on dirty names, it's either fascism or communism. Which one is it? Fascism or communism? That was the argument. And the people that said, no, 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 constitutionalism, individual freedom, my own choice, my own way of doing it. No.
Yeah.
So FDR co-opted the word liberal, named the right conservative, and that took the conservative that said, I believe in the Constitution, I'm conserving man's freedom, I'm a classic liberal. It made that go away.
Yeah.
Took that choice away. So now we have to do what the opposite of what the progressives did and retrain people to say, no, they hijacked those words to take what we all, it's so amazing. These words never, they always just sounded nice, but they have never rung as real to me as they do now. There are some things that we find self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they have certain rights.
Yeah.
And they're life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That doesn't belong to the government.
Yeah. It also doesn't belong to any other nation, which is interesting. Nobody has that, the pursuit of happiness written in their constitution. I mean, we have that. We haven't always lived up to it in terms of equality and the rest of that, but it's a pretty good system.
The pursuit of happiness is one that I think Thomas Jefferson would have argued harder against had he known how it would be twisted, because he originally wrote it, life, liberty, and property. But because they were anti-slavery, they knew if you put property there, then it's going to be taken for the slaves. They'll say, the South, the slaves, these are property, it's guaranteed right here. It's in the Declaration of Independence, our founding document. So they changed it to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Imagine if that word would have been just left alone and been property. We're a million miles away from that.
Yeah.
No man has the right to take anything from me.
I love that you mentioned Thomas Jefferson, because I think he's the best example of someone that lived in a time where what they believed in didn't quite match up to their life. So this is a guy, I was at Monticello about a year ago, I've told the story a couple times, where they give you the tour and they fully, I was incredibly impressed what they do. They admit he had slaves.
Oh yeah.
They admit that he slept with at least one slave.
That's dicey.
They pretty much admitted it.
Yeah, but I know, but you should ask them for the evidence, because the evidence.
I mean, I think they mentioned her name and said
Sally Hemings.
And had a
yeah,
child
but that was proven for about 3 weeks, and it was done by Joseph Ellis. He misstated that they have his evidence that it could be one of 36 Jeffersons. They need his actual DNA, and it was known at the time that his brother, I think, was sleeping with slaves. So the paper evidence of the time shows that it was most likely his brother. Joseph Ellison back in the 90s was the one who wrote the book American Sphinx, and he said it was Thomas.
Right.
That was disproven 3 weeks later. The genealogists came out and said, no, 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 we didn't say that. We said it could be one of 36 Jeffersons. So there's still an argument.
You should talk to the people over at Monticello, because I think they're giving a less nuance. But my point being that it shows how we all live in sort of conflicted lives. That while he owned slaves, he was writing the laws to free slaves.
Yeah.
And yet he didn't free his slaves immediately.
But again, here's something we also leave out of the history books. Thomas Jefferson went to Williamsburg several times to propose the legislation that you could release your slaves. If you were in debt, which he was, I'm sure they told you about his wine collection.
Yeah, oh yeah.
If you were in debt, you could not free your slaves, okay? I think even upon death, you couldn't do it. They finally changed the death part, but that's why Washington and Jefferson were anti-slavery, having slaves. Jefferson couldn't release them because of debt. Washington did it because the law only allowed him to do it on death.
Yeah. I don't even mention it to judge him in that way as much to show that we all live with strange forces
we're all going to be remembered at this time. There's going to be something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but there's going to be something that they're going to go, what hypocrites.
Yeah.
No, we're doing the best we can.